And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and to another episode of the Skating Penguin Mailbag Show. This is part two for this week. We had back to a full slate of questions from our listeners, and um, as always, Robbie here in Western Pennsylvania, about roughly 3,000 miles to the west in the Pacific Northwest, is once again joining me, co-host Snail. Snail said he had to postpone this recording a bit because he was covered in, I'm assuming, window caulking from his
Hmm.
job. But if you can't see him obviously through the podcast, but he does look like he cleaned up and is presentable at this
Yep.
moment. So Snail, obviously you were a little in the dirt today, but how are we going
Yes.
now?
Yep. Super dusty. Kind of just an icky day as a painter, but I'm grinding. I'm got here, cleaned up a bit, and I'm ready to talk some hockey. How it's kind of reverted back. Us out here in the Pacific Northwest, we love a weather chat. I feel like that's just
Yeah,
something we
well,
love to
yeah,
talk about. Who doesn't love a good weather chat? It just
yeah,
dictates so much of our days. But that warm kind of beginning of summer weather has left, and it
yep.
is now dreary and cold, and I need to re-unpack my sweatshirts that I put away thinking I was done with those for the year. But how is it out there in Western PA?
Today is beautiful. Mid 70s, sunny, a little partly cloudy. So, I mean, a nice summer day. Unfortunately, that's not going to hang around through at least until Sunday. We're supposed to get some rain rolling in the next 2 days, which we absolutely don't need, actually, because everything is saturated. So, hopefully, it's just showers and not significant deluges of rain, because I don't know what our ground can handle anymore at this point. So,
Jeez.
um, no, it's good out here, and obviously, um, yeah, obviously they hope it keeps rolling, and summer comes, and
Are you
yeah,
guys
that's
out
all I
of
got.
the freezing weather?
It, we could get a cold night, but freezing during the day is pretty much done for.
Pretty
Yeah, I
much
mean,
done.
yeah, we haven't had a day below 50 in quite a while. That as a high, we're pretty much out of that. At night, you could still get, especially if there's a weather change, we could get a quick freeze, but it's not going to be a super hard freeze at this point. We're pretty much out of that.
No frosty windshields in the morning anymore. Kind
Not
of away
anymore.
from
I
that.
luckily haven't had a frosty windshield in quite a few weeks, which
That's
is really
good.
nice because there's nothing more annoying waking up in the morning trying to get ready to go to work and you figure out that you have to um,
Defrost.
defrost everything. So no, that way we are pretty good, and we just waiting for the hot. But other than that, we're doing pretty good out in this neck of the woods.
Right on. Same out here. Well, let's get to some questions, shall we? We got, yeah, like Robbie said, part two of the mailbag, consisting of good pal Brian, good pal Edward Beckham, and of course, Andreas Castle. So,
Correct.
question number one for this mailbag today is coming from Brian, and he's got some questions pertaining to some playoff hockey. And he asks, is sweeping a team more bad than good? Yeah, you get rest and stay healthy, but having such long breaks definitely works against your timing and chemistry on the ice.
This is something I definitely would like to see maybe some research on, because if you look at the last round, Carolina and New York both were done with their series quick, so that kind of washed out. But Florida was done quick with Tampa Bay. Boston obviously went seven hard fought with Toronto, and Boston came out in game one and laid the hammer down on Florida in that game one. Now since then it's been more Florida, so maybe that usually that rust is maybe just a game, but I mean taking that first game on the road for even a team that played 7 games can be a huge momentum boost. But you kind of also saw it in a way with Dallas was done with, or Dallas was kind of the exact opposite actually. Well, kind of. It was kind of weird there because Colorado was done quick with Winnipeg. Dallas went seven with Vegas, and Dallas in that game came out on fire. They did end up blowing a 3-goal lead and losing, but really the tired team, or what should have been the tired team, came out big in that opener. So um, that's definitely, yeah, kind of, even though they lost, it was definitely the more tired team was the uh, uh, was the better team off the bat. And then the other series, Edmonton, I believe, won in 6 games, and Vancouver won in 6 games, so a complete wash there as well. But definitely, I think this time of year when you're playing almost every other day, and I understand that for some guys, like especially older guys, it might be nice to get an extra 2 or 3 days off. But when you get in a routine like that where you're playing constantly, and I think that's actually what helped the Penguins in March or April when they were playing like every other night. They had to get, and again, there was desperation. They were just playing good hockey. That's all a factor. But when you're in that routine of playing every other night, if you get out of that routine, I could definitely see it causing some issues. But I think in the end, even though that the team that just came off a long series might jump out to a hot start, I think, and it showed in these 2 series specifically, the better team has risen to the top in the long haul with Florida and Dallas. Yeah, they haven't clinched yet and moved on, but they definitely still have a stranglehold on their series. So I think it gives you an early advantage, but once that rust, if there is any rust, wears off, you eventually the cream rises to the top. You're on mute.
I wasn't gonna chime in, but I'll take a sweep any day. Like I
I
think
mean,
that
I
if
will never argue against a sweep. Let's put it that way. It makes me feel better.
sure.
I will never argue against a sweep. It's just, from a standpoint of fatigue and readiness, I can see where this time of year it definitely throws things off a little bit.
Especially early in the playoffs, like a first round sweep, I'll take that any day. Basically, if your team can't win a series because of rust from having enough time
That's
off, then
fair.
you probably
Absolutely
weren't going
fair.
to go the distance anyways, in my
That's
opinion.
absolutely fair. Yeah, I think that is absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. All right, question number 2, going to Snail here, if I can find it. It is from Brian. Um, and he's saying, not sure if you saw the reports that Jen Gensel sold his house in Pittsburgh to Brian Rust or not, but that's probably a telling sign that he's gone. Although maybe with Carolina seemingly losing in the second round again, the door could be open.
Oh man, that's so I researched this a little bit and I found one article that was literally reporting on the selling of Jake's house, but it was behind a
Jeez.
paywall.
Oh, yeah.
And so I didn't read too much of it. It was an interesting article, and I was tempted to pay the $4 so I could read it because it talked about his return on the house. And
Oh, gosh.
I guess I'd like to take a little peek a little peek into the housing market out there in Western Pennsylvania. What he buy it for, what he sell it for. But back to like more the hockey talk. That's an interesting little tidbit, and that is very telling that Jake is not coming back. Not that I needed to be. I didn't need that little tidbit to really be convinced
Yeah.
that Jake's gone for good. And at this point, it's dawning on me a little bit. I don't even think Carolina is the place where he'll end up either. Jake Gensel, I think in Pittsburgh, I felt like for a long time he was such a well kept good secret. Like it's like a lot of teams maybe out west, they're not. There's so many big names in the East
Mm-hmm.
forward wise. Jake Gensel gets lost in that shuffle, but American born player, good for 30 a year. Up until pretty recently, he's typically pretty healthy, pretty available almost
Mm-hmm.
always. Point per game player in the playoffs. This guy is a stud player, and I mean he's entering free agency, which some players don't even get a chance to really get into free agency,
Correct.
where they
Correct.
sign that generational wealth type of contract that and Jake has a family now. You know, he has a wife and he
Mm-hmm.
has a child. But the speculation will be so interesting to dive into this offseason. But if Carolina gets bounced and they don't make even a conference final this year,
Mm-hmm.
their coach Rod Brindamore, who I think they'd be nuts not to re-sign him, but it's he doesn't have a deal on the table anymore. It sounds like. Not saying that there isn't a chance he will get another offer, but I mean they haven't been over to get over the top. This was their year where they're going full in. They got
Correct.
Kuznetsov. They brought in Jake Gensel, and I think sometimes people forget a little bit. This offseason, they did a lot of heavy lifting too in signing Orlov to bolster that back end. Orlov is a top 4 defenseman on any team in the
Yeah.
league. Playoff guy, has a Stanley Cup. I'm trying to think of who else. Brett Pesce was a player that they were going to possibly move on from, but they didn't trade him. They kept him in the fold. They've got Slavin. I'm trying to think of who else is on that blue line. I just know that they have a hell of a blue line. Oh, Tony DeAngelo they picked up, who, granted, he has his off ice issues and stuff, but he's a great puck moving offensive defenseman. So this was all in, and if it doesn't pay off this year, you just don't know where the Carolina Hurricanes will stand, and if Jake Gensel wants to, sign his big ticket with a team where there might be massive change, which he kind of is just walking away from in Pittsburgh. I think that this summer will be interesting following. It'll be Jake Gate. You know what I mean? It'll be watching where Jake signs. He'll be the biggest. He'll be the biggest free agent, I think, on the market this offseason.
I generally think the more I think about it, the more I think he's going to get upwards of $11 million a season.
Dude, look at some of the players getting 11 million.
Yeah, I mean, he's better than Mitch. He's better than Mitch Marner.
Oh, absolutely.
He's quite clearly not simply a product of Sidney Crosby. He's gonna make. I'm not going to say he's going to. I guess there's not really a max deal. I think to sign a max deal, you technically would have to stick with the team that you are currently with. I'm telling you, I don't think he's going to get. I don't know what I say. I did look at what McDavid was making at one point.
Isn't it 12.5?
It's 12 something. I mean, it's tough to Connor McDavid's going to give you like 150 points a year. That's really hard to argue with. I for some reason cannot find them on.
You want to talk about a guy who's about to get paid out the what is that? Leon Draisaitl when his contract's up.
Draisaitl can sign a new contract on July 1st.
Dude, that guy is good for 50 a year, and he's a playoff stud. That guy is one of the best playoff performers in the game right now. He's got snarl to him. Did you see that snipe the other night from on the goal line? That's like his Ovi's office. That guy is incredible. He's worth every penny. Give him the McDavid contract. But back to Jake.
So, I mean, Nathan McKinnon's getting 12.6 against the cap. His salary is actually 16.5, but that's with signing bonuses and everything. So Nathan McKinnon's 12.6 against the cap. That is the most expensive in the NHL. McDavid's at 12.5. Panarin is at 11.6.
What did Austin sign for?
Austin is at 11.6. So Panarin's at 11.642. Austin's at 11.640. So like a $2,000 difference. And then number 5 is Erik Karlsson at 11.5.
I mean, dude, would you be shocked at all if he got Panarin money?
You can't. So David Pastrnak is at 11.25. I would not be shocked if he gets Pastrnak money. Now Pastrnak is 3 years younger. Doughty's not a good comparison because he's 33. Tavares is 32. He's at 11.
How old is Jake? 31.
Jake Gensel is not making nearly enough money. Jake Gensel, who's he play for now? Carolina. This is very good podcasting.
No,
Jake is making
you in a tough spot.
Jake is making 4.5 against the cap. Let me see if there's a different salary number to that. Yeah, his base salary this year is only $6 million. It was higher a couple years ago, and lower last year. He's getting a base of $6 million. Again, I think actually his deal was his cap hit was $6 million. Carolina's only paying 4.5 because the Penguins retained.
They retained on him.
They retained 1.5 for the rest of the season.
That kind of went untalked about. I think we were so.
It was 1.5, and for the Penguins at that point, it was really, it was nothing. So.
He's 29 years old. I mean,
he'll be 30 he'll be 30 at the beginning of next season.
At the beginning of next season, so
October 6th. So right around beginning.
He's not an over physical guy. He's got he's a smaller framed player. He's not a big bulking guy.
He does have a very long injury list. I will say that.
He does.
I mean, there's on Cap Friendly since 2019. There's 13 registered injuries.
Oh shit. Well,
Oh, sorry about that. Hold on. No, some of these are
I know he got the
okay.
hand surgery.
Remember he busted up his shoulder before COVID. Was
That's
supposed to
right.
miss the rest of the year, week to week. That's fine. Okay, so most of it he had his ankle repaired, but that was just surgery. So most of it was day to day. The longest was the shoulder that he ended up coming back for in the bubble, and then the second longest was really the ankle. I'm not going to count because I mean he didn't miss any time. So it was really the injury this year, the 4 week upper body injury.
Yeah, wasn't that like his hand or something? I don't know.
I don't even
But
remember what it was now, to be honest. I really don't. I've kind of memory hold so much of this season already. Um, I'm writing player recaps and reviews for Pennsburg, going through different players and stuff like that. So I kind of memory hold, and now I'll be reading about a player. I'm like, oh, I forgot that happened in like mid January. So
that's true. You know, it already feels weird thinking about it. He wasn't even playing when he was traded.
no, he actually didn't even play right away. Like he missed like 2 or 3 games with the Hurricanes when he went over. So. Um,
But I mean, dude, this Jake Gensel, he's gonna. I wouldn't be surprised if he got Pasternak money. Is a great comparison. I wouldn't be surprised if he got Pasternak money. I think he's worth every penny of it. If I don't think he's signing in Pittsburgh.
I
That
just don't
ship
see
has
it.
long since
Yeah, I
sailed.
mean, yeah, I would be stunned. I mean, a good stun if he did sign in Pittsburgh, but I'm nowhere near holding my breath on that one. So
No, Brian, I'm sorry, but you got to let him go. You just got to let him go.
I
Drew
think it'll be
O'Connor's our
better. I
guy
think it'll
now.
be better for the fan base when he signs somewhere that's not Pittsburgh.
Oh, I hope he signs in the West.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to play him 4 or 5 times a year.
No, God forbid the Penguins get back in the playoffs, and what if he signs in like Buffalo or something, and then the Buffalo Sabres
Buffalo would be very funny.
or Detroit or something like that? Wouldn't that be a kick in the
Buffalo
knackers?
would be utterly hilarious. But all right,
uh, let's get on. Here's
oh
a
yeah,
question for you, Brian. Like I said, or Brian, let him go. Question coming again from Brian to Robbie here. With Keefe being let go in Toronto, here we go. More Keefe rumors. With Keefe being let go in Toronto, is he the likely pick for the opening in Wilkes-Barre Scranton? Wouldn't want him on the bench with Sully, but he develops young players really well. If so, would you consider Dubas' loyalty more of a flaw than an asset?
well, his loyalty got Michael Bunting to Pittsburgh, so I'll take that. I guess it's a hit or miss. It can definitely be both, and I think that goes for everybody, not just the general manager of your favorite hockey team. But I don't see Keefe in Pittsburgh in any fashion in the Pittsburgh organization. I think it's going to end up. If I'm just going on my gut here, I think it's going to be New Jersey. Again, you talk about a young team, young players. I think he could do a lot of good there. I don't think he was the whole problem in Toronto. I think that was again, I'm not saying he is the perfect coach by any means, because again, he was unable to win with all that talent, but there's also a lot going on in that I don't think that we always hear, that I don't think that he can be blamed for. So I think he would do good in New Jersey, and he's going to be a head coach somewhere again. Like he had good success, regular season success in Toronto, and if you want to be in the playoffs, you have to have the good regular season success. So he has a track record, or at least that. I think he's going to get a job. I think it's going to be New Jersey, and I just don't think he fits with what the Penguins are trying to do right now.
Dude, Keefe went 212 and 97
Yeah, that's
in
absurd.
40 over 5 seasons. But his playoff record is, we all know the story there. They've gotten out of the first round once. But I don't think that's necessarily on Keefe. I think he did the best he could with that roster in the playoffs. But when you've got a guy making $11 million who puts up 100 points in the regular season, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander, who actually is the lowest paid out of that core, I'm going to call it the core three, out of that
Yeah,
core
it's fine.
three, he gets paid the less, and he shows up the most in the playoffs. And then you have Austin Matthews, who might be the greatest American goal scorer ever, probably going to be one of the best goal scorers in league history, who doesn't show up in the playoffs either. So when you've got that much money tied up in the cap, not doing their jobs in the playoffs, I mean, Keefe can't go out there and score goals. He probably wishes he could,
Yeah.
but you can't blame him. And I think New Jersey is a good goaltender away from being a great hockey team. I think they lost Dougie Hamilton to
Yeah.
most of the season last year, or the bulk of it. He's a phenomenal puck moving. He's a number one right shot D, and without him in goaltending, you're cooked. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah,
good.
and you can talk. I mean, the goaltending's obviously not necessarily easy to find, but they're definitely, again, they had some injuries this year that happens that you can't control. But if they can find the goaltender, they're going to be right back in the thick of things. So a good situation out there in New Jersey if he wants it.
I mean, if I'm Keefe, I mean, show me if you show me a good coach, you're going to see a good goaltender. You look at the coaches that are up for Coach of the Year this year. It's Bonus with Hellebuck. Talkett had Demko, and who's the third one? Oh, no, who's the third coach up for Coach of the Year? Bonus,
Good.
Talkett.
Um,
Is it Montgomery?
who? It wasn't Laviolette, was it?
Is it Laviolette? I guess I gotta look it up. There's a third one, and I know that.
Oh, Brunette. Talkett, Brunette, and
Burnett.
Bowness.
Burnett. Oh, Soros. So, if I guess if I was Keefe, if I'm getting interviewed by New Jersey, I'm like, who's stopping the puck for me? Because that's going to determine a lot for a season. And like Penguins fans know, if you don't have goaltending, you have quite literally diddly squat.
That is absolutely true. Yeah, and it sucks.
Let's see here. I think we're. Oh no, I think I know what question is up.
This is from Edward. Edward Beckham. And it's not really a question, more of a statement here. But we
brag.
talked about a very humble brag. We talked about vacations last week, and we asked Edward to tell us where he goes, and he put us all to shame. Edward says, "My vacations are usually to a beach resort in Europe, the Canary Islands, the Balearic Islands, the Greek Islands would usually be the choice. Must cater for kids. Think of that too. Tenerife, often the choice, which has the number one voted water park in the world. That is quite a pull. I also like to do city breaks with the fiance. I mean, you win, Edward. So take it away.
I mean, dude, yeah. I was gonna say, like, when he said the number one voted water park in the world, I was just like, in the world, and I'm thinking about all the dumps in Washington water parks that you go to in the summer, like Wild Waves, or I think you've got like there's a couple other ones.
Pretty insane, actually.
It's Siam Park.
It's in Spain. It's okay. It's pretty legit. Yeah, that would be awesome to go to. Actually, oh my gosh, they have sea life too.
So it's just a phenomenal experience.
Aquarium / water park. Yeah, that's. I'll give you that. Might be some cultural appropriation going on, but but definitely, yeah, that looks sick. I would go there in a heartbeat. I can see why you take your kids there.
I mean, even water parks aside, you're looking out for your kids or whatever, but the Canary Islands, the Balearic Islands, and the Greek Islands are all like, that's a lot of people's bucket lists. Like, they might not ever even get there.
Yeah, our bucket lists and European bucket lists must be two wildly different things.
Dude, for real. There's people here that are just like, just get me to Florida. Just get me to Orlando, Florida.
I want to go to Disney and get sweaty and smelly.
Yes, I want to be around children and go to Disney. And this guy's just like, usually
we'll just go to the Med, just hang out on the Greek Isles, chill out,
surrounded by gorgeous people. Yeah, it's just
the most attractive people that you could ever imagine.
Yes.
Which obviously is Edward's fiance in his mind. Obviously, Edward believes the most attractive person in the world is his fiance.
Or the life expectancy is long. It's beautiful every day.
You can have like a random gyro. That's actually like a real gyro. Greek salads. Oh man.
Probably things I've been to Greece and it's beautiful, but the Greek islands is probably a whole different level.
Oh, it's completely different world.
That's where all the pictures that I'll see in like my dentist's office or something are of is those Greek islands, those stock photos of just beautiful places that look like they're from a movie. But awesome, Edward. Thank you for letting us know that you're just just must be nice out there. You don't want to know where we go on vacation here. Let's just say that. It's probably embarrassing. All right. Another question from Edward Beckham. And he asks you, this is a great question. Who is your most hated NHL player?
Man, this could be like a million different options.
Yeah, it depends on the day, right?
Yeah, it really depends on the day. Obviously, the names that come to mind: Tom Wilson, at least modern names. Tom Wilson, Jacob Trouba comes to mind immediately. And there's guys that I probably love that people probably hate. There's probably people in Philadelphia that would say Sidney Crosby without hesitation. But I mean, if you're going like the dirty side of it, absolutely like Tom Wilson, Jacob Trouba is obviously at the point now where I think he's pretty well hated by across the NHL. Brad Marchand is probably another name that definitely comes up for people that are not from Boston. Now, historically, if you're a Penguins fan, Adam Graves from the Rangers comes to mind for his antics in the early 90s. Trying to think of some other guys. Scott Stevens. I don't know how much people hate Scott Stevens. He was just immensely just borderline all the time. There's so many good options there too.
Well, the thing with Trouba is you hear a lot, and I've said this too about Trouba, but I take him on my team any day type of thing. This playoffs, watching Trouba with the chicken wings and I don't know if I would. I don't know if I want. It's tough. It's tough with a guy like him. He's probably very hated right now. Let's kind of fix this question. Not fix it. It's not broken, but let's rephrase. Who's your most hated ex-Penguin, and who is your most hated player? Like just ultimate most hated player that's ever played in the National Hockey League.
Most hated ex-Penguin. Oh boy, that's a good question. I mean, at one time it was probably Jaromir Jagr when all the emotions were running high. I mean, going to Philly and then just that whole situation and seemingly like quitting on the Penguins. But I think that is definitely subsided. Most hated ever. Ex-Penguin. The ex-Penguin one's a really good question because like who do I not like? Steve Downey probably was up there at one time. Max Lapierre was probably in that conversation. Man, there's so many. I'm just trying to think of like, man, there's so many good potential options.
I mean, I was pretty upset when Max Talbot signed with the Flyers.
Yeah, that one. But Talbot, like all those guys eventually come back around.
What about Brooks Orpik signing in DC?
Yeah, Orpik was kind of a prick too after he left Pittsburgh.
He was.
After like he took out, who did he hit?
Him and Niskanen.
Was it No, Niskanen took out Crosby in that one playoff series. Orpik hit Olli Mata and got suspended for it.
Holy Mata. I forget about him sometimes.
Yeah, that's one that kind of like, oh yeah, he's still in the NHL, making a living.
Yeah.
Playing defense in I believe Detroit right now. So
yep.
Most hated. What was the other one? Most hated player of all time.
Most hated NHL player who's ever played the game of hockey.
Of players that I've personally seen. Is this my opinion or just like who I think would be?
No,
voted?
This is your opinion.
My opinion. Okay.
Yeah, that's what people listen to us for, is our opinions.
That's true. I would say. I mean, Wilson's got to be up there, just because Scott Hartnell's up there too.
Dude, he's got.
I'd have to say, like, if you want true, like, died in the wool, like hate, like it was, I would seethe. It would probably be Scott Hartnell. Like, I loathe Scotty Hartnell to probably an unhealthy extent.
I do. That's a great one. Tom Wilson is up there because every time they play the Capitals, it's and I see him out there and he's John at Crosby or he's just doing his job out there trying to be Probert light. I get like emotional, like I get like upset. I'm just like, yeah. God, it's like I feel like he's like a bully, and I'm like a kid on the playground. I'm like, I hate that guy. But Hartnell, I hate him even now. I hate listening. Let's just rip Scotty Hartnell.
That's fine.
But that guy, even in the media, sometimes I hate his takes. He has horrible hair too. Look, you know what? Scotty Hartnell.
I think Hartnell is probably who I would go with, just because it's just so frustrating.
Dubinsky's up there too.
That's a good one. Brandon Dubinsky is an excellent option as well. I didn't that one literally as you were splurting that out, it came right to my mind of like, oh, he's got to be up in there too.
It came to my mind because you talked about Hartnell. He played for Philly and Columbus, and you know who else was in Columbus was Dubinsky. So I was just
Yeah, Dubinsky was always but like they always got the last laugh on Dubinsky. Like, I mean, you're
yes.
stuck playing in Columbus, dude. Get a hold of yourself. You're embarrassing yourself.
I mean, his career he didn't win a whole lot. So, anyways, that's a couple. That's a good 3-pack, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Dubinsky, Hartnell, Wilson. I mean, what Penguins fans have any love for those guys?
yeah.
All righty, moving on then here. This question goes over to Robbie. It's from Andreas Castle again, or Andreas Castle. This is a good one too. Which franchise do you despise and why? I hate the Rangers since
Yeah.
22. When Ryan Lindgren injured Ricard Raquel and Trouba took out Sid for the next game against them, Andreas says he would dress Darius Kasparaitis or Ulf Samuelsson, a couple of tough customers.
Like, I can always tell the people that like were late joining fans, like, or born like Garrett, like later than I am. Like, dude, my deep loathing for like the Rangers just runs so deep, and not just because of 22. It runs so much deeper than that. It goes back.
Oates.
It goes
Or no,
back.
it's Graves, right? Adam Graves.
Graves. It goes back in the 90s. Washington is up there too, though a lot of the animosity toward them is strictly because of like just they played in the playoffs every freaking year. They are up there as well. Like anybody, like any of Washington, Philadelphia, and the Rangers, the Islanders are just they just make my blood boil because they're just it's just even when they play them in the regular season, everything about them says they should be a dreadful hockey team, and they're in contention all the time. If I was somebody that played the Panthers a lot, I would probably loathe the Panthers, but I don't, obviously. Other than that, Boston, I don't really, Boston, I don't like. But like I'd say, if I had to pick one, it would be between the Rangers and the Flyers, and I probably would vote the Flyers just because, like, it's Pennsylvania, it's Philly. There was so much hate even before I was born, and they didn't play in the playoffs until I was, oh man, 90. I can't remember what year it was even, but it was like later 90s until they even met in my lifetime. So, but like just there's always been that just vile kind of venom between those two teams, but the Rangers are a close second.
Yeah, of course, the rivals. There's a lot of pretty much anyone in the Metro that's not the Penguins you hate, but the Rangers specific. There's a very specific loathing for them. The Flyers, of course, that's a great answer. But I love when the Penguins play the Flyers because
Oh yeah,
we've been fortunate over the last, 15 years that they just kind of have their number, and it's been a little bit more favorable for the Penguins.
yep.
I'm gonna go out and just they're not typically involved in this conversation, but I'm a little flack going out to Toronto. I can't stand that fan
Yeah, I
base.
know
I can't.
you absolutely loathe Toronto.
I cannot stand that team. I just think that them and I think I'll stick with that. The Islanders is a good one too, because like you said, I just feel like they're pesky. They're supposed to suck every year, and then they don't, and then they somehow always make the Penguins pay, and I just can't. I can't stand that. So,
I agree with that as well.
yeah, a couple of good ones there.
All right, moving on here. We're going back to Brian for Snail. Brian asks if he cuts his hair, are Snail and I still #FlowBros? The flow has been more in a messy bun than anything with the warm weather coming.
Of course. Well, Flow Bros, it goes beyond the lettuce. It's just
It's a feeling.
it is. It's a mutual feeling at this point. It's a vibe. I've cut my hair a couple times probably, and I never alerted you, but I have just a greasy Canadian mullet right now. It's about, 2 fingers on top, and then I haven't cut the back of my hair for probably 6 or 8 months. So, the Flow Bros, hashtag Flow Bros forever. Just even if you were bald, it's all good.
Yeah.
Question here from Andreas Castle, going over to Robbie. I'd love to watch the In the Room series of the Penguins. Do you know why there were no shows this season?
So my only real guess on this, I don't have any kind of inside information. This is just me kind of spitballing ideas here. Is that with the change in broadcasting partners, they kind of cut back and saw what all needed to be done. Because again, this change kind of came late. A lot of it was the same, but a lot of it was still different. I don't know if it was a budgetary thing or what, but I think it was probably um, something to do with the changeover in broadcast partners. And maybe we'll see it back next year. I don't know. It was always well produced. I believe it even won some awards as well. And it's very good, a very cool insight into what goes on day to day, kind of. They would do specials on players and kind of just give you an inside look. Very well produced. They did do a lot of miking up of players this year, which I think is always fun because, 95% of what they say is just kind of BS chirping each other, a lot of which has to be bleeped out. But I think it gives a good insight of what goes on the ice as well and the communication between players. So I do like the miking of players during games, but I definitely would love a return of the In the Room series for a look behind the scenes.
I loved those things, man, and I just figured it was when like that Fenway took over there that was just one of the things that went. But I've seen a lot of rumors online too that it's like Dubas is scarred from the Amazon Prime series that the Toronto Maple Leafs did, so he's like, we're not doing that.
Who knows? Who knows? All right, moving back to Brian here. We got a gear question here, and it's something that right up Snail's alley. Gino is the first NHL player to request custom skates from Just Do Hockey, the company recreating Nike hockey gear. Gino loved Sergei Fedorov and his iconic white skates, and the skates request reflects that. They said a teammate, an Evgeny Malkin teammate, requested requested custom skates after seeing his pair. Any guesses on who the teammate might be?
So I did see that. That made the rounds on social media. Super cool to see. Evgeny Malkin loves fellow countryman Fedorov. Those skates are iconic, super classic for those the mid to late '90s. And yeah, apparently he is the first NHL player to request a pair of them. And it's not just a teammate of Gino's that requested a pair as well. It is a famous teammate. Now, it's a little bit of a vague answer there. We don't know who that is. It could be a former teammate, could be a current teammate.
Could.
But he is famous, so that narrows it down a little bit. And we're actually going to try to get to the bottom of this. Breaking news here. CJ Gamble, the guy heading up the Just Do Hockey company in trying to get Nike to partner up and get back into the game. He's going to be coming on the podcast, actually. We haven't nailed down a date yet for exactly when that will be. But yeah, I've talked to CJ. He's willing. He wants to talk about his company, Just Do Hockey. And hopefully give us a little bit. We're going to try to break it on Skating Penguin Network. Breaking news: who it was that Evgeny Malkin's rumored famous teammate is to get the second pair. So let the speculation run wild. Let the rumors run wild. Could it be Sid? Could it be Letang? Could it have been who else would have been super inspired by Fedorov?
No, I'm trying to think.
Could it have been Gonchar?
I was thinking Gonchar, but he doesn't remind me of that kind of player. That would have skates like that.
Could it have been Alex Galchenyuk, who's famous for all the wrong reasons?
Oh gosh, I hope not.
No, he was barely a Penguin.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know who. Just start throwing guesses at us on Twitter or something, or X, or whatever you guys care to call it these days. But yeah, he'll come on and we're going to talk about it and hopefully get him to crack and tell us who it was. Let's see here. A question from Edward Beckham going over to Robbie, and he's actually answering a couple of questions from us posed last time we were chatting. He says he's never played hockey. Oh, sorry. This is 40. Oh yeah, never played hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Edward says he's never played hockey. He'd love to try now as the equivalent of a kick around in soccer. So I would take that as just shooting around maybe in
Yeah,
basketball.
basically. Yep.
Just kind of dilly-dallying about. No chance, though. Hardly any facilities in England. It's not a popular sport here. And he actually doesn't know anyone personally that watches or plays. So he's kind of on an island out there.
Yeah, well, literally, in England. But yeah, that is kind of, I guess, frustrating. I guess if you were like the only fan of something, I'd be like being like a cricket fan in the United States or something like
It'd
that.
be like me being a Penguins fan in Seattle.
Yeah. It's so Edward and Snail, you guys can have a little therapy session between you two discussing being a lonesome fan of a niche sport in an area where that either sport or fandom is not very popular. But yeah, out there in the British Isles, it would definitely be it would definitely be hard, I guess. Like yeah, especially if you're like a new fan. Like if you're a long time fan, you could probably just be like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do now. But if you're a new fan trying to get into it, it's always more fun to watch with other fans. So I could definitely see that being a challenge out there, and not having ice access can definitely be difficult as well, especially if you want to start playing the game. But maybe, I don't know, Edward, you travel apparently all over Europe. Why don't you go ask somebody in the Canaries or the Greek Isles if they're into hockey? I'm sure you can find someone. Go find an American. They're all through the Greek Isles, apparently, according to my Instagram. So,
oh
yeah, go find them. See if they enjoy the old puck, and get to talk and maybe make a friend. Obviously, you have us as well, but definitely, I think if you want to be getting into the game, it would be more fun if you had a group of people. So I can definitely understand the frustration of being in a place where hockey has not really taken hold. Obviously, you have some lower competitive professional leagues, but nothing diehard like in Canada or the United States. I could definitely see that being frustrating.
Actually, I got a question here for Edward that I'd be curious for him to answer, and that is, do you follow the NHL more than you follow England's pro hockey league? Like, I know there's like the Cardiff Devils. I know that there is there's a whole league out there with teams in England, right? So,
Yep.
do you follow them more than you follow the NHL, or vice versa?
Yeah, good question. So look forward to Edward answering that. And so last one here to wrap this episode up. Listen, when Garrett left, we said the hits were going to keep coming for Garrett, and Brian's delivering this week's knockout blow to Garrett. Brian says, poor little Garrett has to walk a bit now. Talking about Garrett's walk to work. The pain from his shin splints is just weakness leaving the body. Quote unquote, Junior is what he calls Garrett, will be fine. So shots fired.
Pain is weakness leaving the body. Love that. Yeah, Garrett, I'm sure he still hasn't recovered. His walks to the, as he calls it, the trolley, and into his office down in downtown Pittsburgh. I'm sure that he's still whining about it, and maybe he's changed up his footwear a bit. You never know with him though. I haven't heard anything from Garrett much. I sent him a meme, and he responded with kind of a tongue-in-cheek response, but he's posting. He's active on the gram. He's active on Twitter. I'd be curious to know what he's doing. I wish I had like a little, like, you know how people put like those little like GoPros on their cats to see what they're up to.
Put one right on his forehead, like a light,
like a headlamp. Yeah. I'd like to just see like where he's bobbing about nowadays in Pittsburgh. But yeah,
can you imagine watching on his walk from the train station to his work. It's just like bobbing along.
getting on the trolley, sitting there, and
People
just
looking at him like, "Why do you got that thing on your head, you
yeah.
weirdo?"
Why are you walking like you have shin splints?
Him like complaining he's bitching the entire time.
Yeah, I got shin splints. I
I
could
got
see it.
plans.
But I'd love to put a GoPro on him and see what his daily regimen is, or maybe not. Maybe I don't want to know. Might be horrified at that. But either way, Junior, as Brian has dubbed him, he will be fine. And even if he is fine, he'll let us know when he's not.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
loves
absolutely.
he loves a complaint. So all the best though to Garrett.
Yeah, absolutely. The best of Garrett, the best of all our listeners, the best of all our question askers, as always.
Absolutely.
So that puts a cap on the part 2 of this week's mailbag. Thank you guys again for asking questions. After a kind of so-and-so first round of the NHL playoffs, all 4 series are going at least 6 games. As of this recording, the Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes and Edmonton and Vancouver are preparing for their games this evening. Carolina and New York are in Game 6. Edmonton and Vancouver heading into Game 5. Carolina has fought back valiantly against the Rangers to force a Game 6 after being down 3-0. They're back in the eye of the hurricane tonight in Raleigh. New York definitely does not want to go home. The only reason New York wants to go home is if it's to prepare for the Eastern Conference Final. Carolina knows they have to get back to New York to have a shot. Edmonton and Vancouver, it's been a crazy series. Great goaltending, bad goaltending, offenses. It's been all over the place. Last second goals, comebacks. It's been highly entertaining, and I'm looking forward to hopefully get 7 out of that one. Because that would be
the All
super
Canada
exciting.
series. Love that.
Yeah,
it's madness.
The only 2 Canadian teams left in this fight. So we know at least one will be going to the conference final. We just got to wait and find out who.
I got a little tidbit for you. I saw this on social media, and it left my jaw on the floor. An American team has actually won a championship in the Canadian Football League more recently than a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup.
I mean, I would probably just fold if I learned that. I mean, what's the point of like just fold?
You'd fold.
Just
Yeah,
fold your franchise.
What is the team here? The Baltimore Stallions won the Grey Cup, as it's called in Canada, in 1995, and the last team, as we know, was the Montreal Canadiens in '93 to win the Stanley Cup.
Correct.
So, insane stat right there. It's kind of a disservice, and like Gary Bettman doesn't really seem poised to put any more teams up north above the border. In fact, he just wants to go as close to the Mexican border. Pretty soon there'll be an NHL team.
There'll be a team in Europe before there's another team.
I was going to say probably in Mexico City, and there'll be a juggernaut. There'll be an expansion, and there'll be the next Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah.
And maybe by subtraction of a team from Canada. I feel like Gary's just anti-Canadian at this point. But yeah, I thought that was just an awful stat.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty insane. I know, I mean, it's been over 30 years now since a Canadian team has won the Cup. Montreal in '93 was the last team to do so. So it's definitely, 31 years now for the home of the place the sport was invented. Frankly, I'd call it embarrassing.
It's super embarrassing. But you know, is it the media's crazy up there? Sometimes most of a lot of great players are from Canada, but you got like Steven Stamkos as an example. He didn't want anything to do with going back to Toronto. He loves living in Tampa. It takes a certain type of player to play in Toronto, especially. Those Canadian teams, when the passion can turn on you, it seems that if you're not doing well in the Canadian market, you can't even go to the grocery store without getting heckled. Where you could be a superstar in Raleigh, Carolina, and no one would even look twice at you. So I wonder if that really actually has anything to do with it. You got to wonder if it does. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know if it has to do with money. Is it expensive to live up in Canada?
It can be, depending on where you live. Absolutely.
I mean, it can be. It's expensive to live in Seattle, just about anywhere nowadays.
Yeah.
But Anyways, it's you wonder what it is. Could this be the year that you at least get a Canadian team in the Stanley Cup final? I I feel like ramping up into the postseason. I thought Edmonton was a. I thought it was going to be a lock. They were in the conference final at least. I mean, one of them will be in the conference final, but Edmonton. Did you see they put in their backup Calvin Pickard,
Yep, he's
who
starting again
pitched
tonight.
a gem,
Yeah, he did.
and they've got the third string in Vancouver Shelovs.
Yeah, just some completely banana stuff going on in that series again. Just, I mean, we're on like second string goaltenders, third string goaltenders. Nobody actually knows if anyone's good. It's completely off the change.
Totally. The other thing, I've been watching. I've been paying a lot of attention to that Vancouver Edmonton series,
Mhm.
and even Vancouver just a little bit. They've got a lot of ex Penguins up there. They've got our boy Rick Tocchet coaching, who's
They
just
do.
done a hell of a job. Finally, he gets a coaching opportunity, head coaching opportunity, with some actual real talent. No offense to Arizona, R.I.P. But when he was coaching there, they didn't have the Logan Coolies, the Doans, the whatever. Um, but that Edmonton team, or the Vancouver team, God, I was just freaking lost my train of thought. This is great podcasting, but no, they've got a player. I know where I was going with this. They have a player on that team who bounced around quite a bit, and he is unreal, and that's Dakota Joshua.
Yeah, Dakota Joshua's been having a heck of a playoffs.
You know who plays for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins? Jagger Joshua, his brother.
Wow, what a name!
Jagger Joshua, great name. But if he's anything like his brother, get him on. I guess he was in
Yeah.
camp last year. Like he attended
Okay.
training
Yeah, I
camp,
mean, yeah, they do invite like 60 players, so he probably was one of the invitees.
but he doesn't have an NHL contract. It is
Okay.
he did sign out of college. He went to Ohio State. I think
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, I do remember that now. Yes.
they signed him to Wilkes-Barre, and then get him an NHL contract, even just a 750K league minimum 2-way contract, whatever you got to do. Because if that dude, I looked at it, I looked at his profile. I'm like, dude, if you're built like your brother and you play anything even close to that, the Penguins need a player like that on their team.
I could get down with that.
Give him a shot, Dubas.
All right. Well, that does conclude our episode now. That is uh, part 2 of this week's mailbag. As always, stay tuned on Sunday for the next mailbag tweet to go out. Lots of good hockey to be played this weekend. We'll see who is left standing when we reconvene on Monday. Most of the action with this round should be about in the books. So we will discuss that as well. So look out for that. But for Snail, I am Robbie. We will talk to you all next week.